Since I was a kid, I have always been a Sonic fan. I adored the games I have played. Even games that the general gaming community would say is bad, I still find some enjoyment in them. Except for this one. This one can burn in a furnace for all I care. I remember walking out of the movie theater, and instead of thinking about the movie that I was watching, I would think, what would a Sonic movie be like? No joke. I was literally like, bro, screw that. I want to see a Sonic movie. I remember hoping, seeing a Sonic movie trailer in the theaters. Now, of course, a lot of Sonic fans would expect a Sonic movie to be something like this. A fully CGI animated film, something pretty akin to the Unleashed opening. Sonic was literally made for this type of film. We didn't get that, didn't we? Now imagine my interest when I caught wind of the news that a Sonic film was in production from Sony, which the production got later taken over by Paramount, which is a wise decision. I'm just going to leave it at that. The more and more news and updates came out about the film, and I started to get more excited actually seeing the film in production. Then we see the poster. Whew. Okay, well, that's a thing. The best way I can describe my initial reaction is my excitement spiked, but my fear spiked even further. And I was not alone in this either. Like, what were they thinking? This is unheard of in the movie industry, but when you mess up the design of a character as iconic as Sonic, that's where we drew the line. But I didn't. I was in denial. I lied to myself, saying it wasn't that bad. It was that bad. Then, the very first trailer released, and unsurprisingly, it was poorly received. I mean, you already lived it. You don't need me to tell you why it was hated. Everyone thought this was 06 all over again. The final nail in the coffin. But something happened. Jeff Fowler, the director of the film, announced that they would be redesigning Sonic, hearing the feedback. They later delayed the movie to Valentine's Day 2020. They listened. They heard us. No, not just us. Everyone. Not just the fans, but the general public voiced their opinions as if all of us together were a unified voice. Tim Miller shared his point of view in an interview about the design controversy. Look, I'm with fans, and so is Jeff. When the shoot hit the fan, I went over there and said the most important thing to do, man, is say, I fricked up. He already sent a tweet out an hour before I got there. He's a good man. It was exactly the right way to handle it. Fans have a voice in this too. There's a right way to listen. This is a really good example of how some individual producers, directors, writers, etc. do care and listen to feedback. They handled it well. I commend them for it. For Sonic's redesign, they brought in the amazing artist Tyson Hess. Sonic's new redesign is different, but super close to the source material than the previous one. $5 million was added to the budget for the redesign alone. And I think it's safe to say that it paid off. When they announced the sequel to the Sonic movie, I was of course super ecstatic. The thought of seeing my favorite Sonic character playing an important role on the big screen was enough to get me hyped. Then we got news of Knuckles being in the movie, and it got me even more excited to see the film. I saw the movie opening night and I loved it. It was a Sonic movie. Almost everything in this movie was Sonic to me. Almost. I saw the movie the second time in theaters, and I watched it several times on digital, and the more I watched it, I slowly started to see its flaws. Don't get me wrong, the movie does its job as an adaptation better than the first, but the story could use some tweaks. Sonic Movie 2 and I had a turbulent relationship. Very first time, I loved it, and then the more I watched it, I would think it could have been better. But watching the movie again recently, I learned to love it again as a Sonic fan. It's not perfect, but this does stand out to me because of what they're trying to do with this film. I'll get into that later, but for now, let's get into the summary. Following the events of the first film, Robotnik constructs a device to create a beacon. A ring portal opens. Robotnik takes the chance to escape the Mushroom Planet, but is met with Knuckles Echidna. He noticed the blue quill the doctor was holding and asked where he got it. Robotnik replies that he'll happily show him the way. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, Sonic pretends to be Batman and destroys an entire city block. He comes home, goes fishing with Tom, almost drowns, has the talk with Tom, and escorts Tom and Maddie through a ring portal to Hawaii as they're going to Rachel's wedding. Sonic is the man of the house with Ozzy the dog. So what is the mature thing to do? He turns the house into a skate park, destroys it, and has a pool party in the house. Meanwhile, Tails arrives looking for Sonic. Sonic gets ambushed by Robotnik and Knuckles. Knuckles get hit by a police car which was stolen by Tails. Sonic and Tails escape, get chased by Knuckles on the road. Tails drives the car off a cliff and saves Sonic. Robotnik and Knuckles form an alliance to search for the Master Emerald, previously mentioned by Knuckles as ultimate power. Sonic and Knuckles learn of the Master Emerald through the map, and Sonic drags Tails along with him on his adventure. Sonic and Tails take a detour at a bar, they have a dance battle, and they go to sleep. In the morning, Sonic and Tails head to the temple, and they learn of the Chaos Emeralds and how they were merged into the Master Emerald. They obtain the compass, get ambushed by Robotnik and Knuckles, and the snowboard chase ensues. Tails gets knocked out by missiles fired by Eggman. Sonic calls Tom to use the warp ring to save him. Tom punches Randall, who is Rachel's fiance by the way, to get the ring. The portal opens and out comes Sonic, Tails, and a pile of snow. The pair gets captured by none other than Gun. Turns out the wedding was a setup to capture Sonic. Maddie rescues the trio, but Robotnik and Knuckles find the temple. Sonic runs across the ocean to get to the temple. Sonic and Knuckles fight. Robotnik gets the emerald. Sonic saves Knuckles. Sonic almost drowns again. Knuckles rescues Sonic. They have a moment and they team up. Team Sonic fights the Death Egg robot. The Master Emerald shatters, but Sonic uses the power of the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic. He absolutely obliterates the giant mech, and Robotnik falls along with his creation. The trio makes a vow to protect the universe from evil. They play baseball, and they go to eat ice cream. The end. But of course, there's something else. A file buried within 50 years ago, whatever. Coordinates to a research facility. Someone worked very hard to keep this hidden. Oh my god. Project Shadow. Okay, now I know that summary was cut and dry, but believe me when I say that the movie is in fact way more fun than it sounded. So let's get to the good stuff for now. The new characters, they're great. You don't need me to tell you how awesome these designs are, so we'll just skip that part. They did Knuckles justice. After all the Sonic booms and the meta eras we've been through of idiot Knuckles, we got a Knuckles where the characterization actually feels like Knuckles. Some people complained at first that Knuckles was kinda dumb in this film, but I disagree. You gotta remember that this Knuckles is from an entirely different planet. He doesn't know anything about life on Earth, like how to have fun, or what ice cream is, or about text messages. ... Even after 2 years, this scene made me laugh. It's also really wholesome seeing Knuckles actually having fun and having real friends. Now when it comes to the utilization of his abilities, I actually really love how Tails was handled here. Tails is packed with a whole arsenal of gadgets. This was during the era where Tails was sidelined in the games and never really did anything. But here, he actually does stuff. We weren't really used to that. I'm glad that Sega and Sonic Team are actually acknowledging that Tails is more than a sidekick and how he can be the best version of himself. And knowing how Sonic Team likes to take inspiration from the movies, I think Tails' playable appearance in Frontiers 2 would be somewhat similar to movie Tails. More game elements. The Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald are in this movie. This movie utilizes elements from the source material and it plays into the story. The way I see it, the movie is like an adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic Adventure, and Adventure 2 to some extent. the guardian units of nations being established, the Owl Temple resembling Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1, Hidden Palace from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Lost World from Sonic Adventure. This movie is more action-filled than the first, to where you just can't take your eyes off the screen. If you're a Sonic fan and you watched this movie for the first time, you probably had a lot of fun watching it. I know I did. I like how Maddie was more prominent in the film than the last one, with her being the one to save Sonic, Tails, and Tom. It was a nice change up from the last film. The references almost had me jumping out of my seat. Sonic striking the Sonic Adventure pose, you can thank Tyson Hess for that. The dummy that Sonic made to fool Tom isn't just a reference to Sonic, but it was also a reference that the Sonic movie Twitter made when the poster was released. Tails' Miles Electric mistranslating his question is a nod to Sonic Colors, where his translator didn't exactly translate what the Wisps were saying. Call it far-fetched, but that's the reference I could think of watching this scene. The alien scavengers at the beginning of the film wearing bird masks that resembled the Babylon rogues. There's just so much more references I really want to go over, but I'd be dragging this section of the video for too long, so let's move on. Okay? Okay. Now that we have gone over the positives, I'm going to have to go over the negatives, unfortunately. Now, before we get into it, let me reiterate that I do love this movie. And to everyone else who does love this movie, that's completely fine. You have a right to like it. But this does not excuse the movie from criticism, because there are a couple things wrong here, and it's right in your face. You just can't unnotice it. Number 1, the soundtrack. The soundtrack isn't bad. I mean, it does the job for a cinematic film, but the problem that I and most fans had with the soundtrack is the lack of any tunes or melodies from the games. This didn't really bother me in the first movie because most of the film's settings weren't really dynamic enough to warrant music from the games. I mean, Hyper Potions at the beginning was good enough, and a piano cover of Green Hill was used at the end of the film, so that was nice. But yeah, this movie could have used some tunes from the games, like in the action scenes. Apparently, Junkie XL, the composer of movie 1 and 2, actually wanted to use the theme of Green Hill Zone as a reoccurring leitmotif throughout the film, but apparently due to legal issues from the rights to the original game's soundtrack being owned by its composer, Masato Nakamura, I am sorry if I pronounced that wrong, it was cut. But despite that, they had Green Hill in the beginning of the film and at the end anyway. Sonic Movie 2, on the other hand, I don't think has any excuse. Well, yes, the composer for the original game Sonic 2 was the same composer for Sonic 1, I don't think he would have had a problem with his music being in the film. In fact, he actually expressed his excitement that his music would be used in the film, but it wasn't used. As a Sonic fan, it kinda hurts that a Sonic film soundtrack doesn't quite sound like Sonic. Okay, just gonna add this in. Drowning music was used in the score one time, but it's so subtle, you can hardly hear it in your initial watch. Great job. Number 2, the wedding scene. I remember a lot of people absolutely hated this scene. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't hate this scene. I quite like it, actually. Not only gives something Maddie to do, but it kind of feels like a breather from the current calamity at hand. But it was a long breather. I'm talking about the movie's Thrown in C plot. The one where Rachel gets pissed and attempts to murder her fiance, who was Randall, played by Shamar Moore. I forgot to mention that. The problem to me isn't the fact that the scene was there, but it's the fact that by the time this scene is over, you would forget about the movie that you're watching. Okay, picture this. You're watching a Sonic movie, which is mostly about Sonic. Then we cut to a 5-minute scene where the character is getting rescued, but the bride slips away to confront her fiance. The fiance sacrifices himself, they make up, and we cut back to Sonic, and we're like, oh yeah, I forgot this was happening. I'm not joking, this happens to me every time I watch this movie. This scene lasts so long to where I would forget about the current conflict at hand. Now, the reason this scene was in the movie was because Tika Sumpter and Natasha Rothwell suggested that they should have a bigger role in this film. And they had just that, which is good, because it means the people working on this film is also listening to the actors. So what's my solution to this? I would simply just trim certain parts of the movie to keep the pace somewhat consistent. Again, the only issue was that this scene lasted a little too long. Now, issue number 3. And this is the one that bothered me the most. Tails. Let me explain. I dread making this critique because I praise this version of Tails for its abilities and how he was actually useful. How he was written in the movie is a different story. Tails kind of feels like an afterthought, but on the other hand, it feels like they did care for him, but not enough. Okay, so let's go over Tails' story. Tails has apparently been watching Sonic since the first movie, but when he heard that Knuckles was looking for him, he decides to find Sonic and warn him, which he is too late for, by the way. So much for that. Rescues Sonic and starts fanboying around him, and explains to Sonic and the audience who Knuckles is and what is going on. He gets dragged along by Sonic on his adventure, with Sonic saying that he won't let anything happen to him, despite saying earlier that he did not trust him because he just met him. Tails' gadget gets them into trouble. He loses the map that they need to find the Master Emerald. He gets anxious because people around him are calling him a freak. Sonic cheers him up by dancing with him. They have a moment where Tails explains his backstory and how Sonic inspired him to leave his village and help him on his mission. What happened to just warning him? Tails gets knocked out, wakes up later. He shows up to pick up Sonic and Knuckles on the tornado later, and then fights along Sonic and Knuckles in the final battle. Did they even have a plan for Tails in this movie? After the snowboard chase scene, he's just there and only shows up when the plot needs him to. He asks Sonic if they can even trust Knuckles, and then he fights alongside them both. With all that being said, does Tails' conclusion in this story feel earned? Well, in my opinion, not really. It's like more the focus on the writing was with Knuckles, and it can't be more obvious. Tails' backstory is an exposition scene, while Knuckles has a visual flashback of his backstory. And it sucks because this is supposed to be his debut film. I mean, his tails are in the logo, for crying out loud. Okay, I think you guys understand my issues with this movie. Lack of Sonic music, the wedding scene overstaying its welcome, and Tails not really having a legitimate reason for being involved in the plot. Now, this is the part I've been wanting to get to ever since I've thought about making this video. How would I address these issues? Somewhat of a rewrite. Well, essentially keeping the story the same, but some changes that I think would, make it more, add some more substance? Hey guys, so what you're gonna hear is a new version of the rewrite, which I actually did type up. The one I had before was, kind of hyper focused on certain things, and going back to the movie, I actually had a lot more to say and a lot more I would change. One more thing before we get into the rewrite, I want to let you guys know that this is based off of my opinions on the movie. These changes are not hard fact and should not be treated as such. It's by no means perfect. I am not a writer. You can still share your opinions on my rewrite. In fact, I would like to hear your versions of the story. How would you pen the script to this film? What changes to the story would you make? So here's a new version of the rewrite. The movie opens with the scene from the original. Robotnik documents his log of his banishment on the Mushroom Planet. He has been formulating a plan to get revenge on Sonic, but has hit a roadblock. How will he escape from this planet? One day he looked to the sky and stared at the multiple moons. An idea sparked in his head. Are there other planets? What if there are other intelligent life forms that could help him escape? I added this in to give more context on how Robotnik got the idea to make a beacon. It's a gamble, but it's Eggman, he's willing to take it. Robotnik constructs a beacon using components from his egg pod. The rest of the scene plays out like the original. One more thing I would change is Knuckles' first introduction. Instead of cutting from Robotnik running towards a ring to Knuckles' silhouette and the portal just appears, it would cut to the portal with his silhouette slowly fading in and approaching, so it wouldn't look so jarring. The scene ends with Knuckles aggressively asking the doctor where he got Sonic's quill. Robotnik explains that he got it from Sonic and that he'd be happy to show him the way. We transition to the Seattle scene where the police are chasing a truck hijacked by bank robbers. Sonic, acting like a vigilante, naming himself Blue Justice, jumps in to stop the bank robbers. He does so but ends up destroying the city block. There's really only one thing I would change in this, and that's the music choice. But it's clearly just on the nose licensed music placement. So I would change it to It Doesn't Matter from Sonic Adventure 1, as it would be more fitting for obvious reasons. In fact, this could be a whole change for the original score. I want to give each character their own leitmotif. Sky Sanctuary for Knuckles, Emerald Hill for Tails, and It Doesn't Matter, or maybe Stars in the Sky for Sonic. For some reason, Robotnik is the only character to have a leitmotif, and it's based on his theme from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. So what's stopping Junkie XL from giving other characters a leitmotif? The next scene starts like the original, with Sonic returning to Green Hills, sneaking into his room, reminiscing on Longclaw. We cut to Tom and Sonic fishing like the original. It's here where we learn of Sonic's flaws at the beginning of his character arc. He's dishonest, reckless, and not aware of the danger he puts people in. Only one of those flaws is in character though. The problem is that he sees his heroics as a fun career first and his own personal moralities second. Tom calls Sonic out for being irresponsible and reckless, but Sonic insists that he was a hero because he stopped a robbery. Tom remarks that a hero doesn't put people in danger with their actions, to which Sonic asks Tom to be his friend and not his dad. In the original, this established a father-son dynamic between Sonic and Tom. I like this father-figure dynamic they were going with, but one aspect I wish they focused on with these two is how Sonic at first sees Tom being his dad as a constraint on his freedom, being told not to take a chance at doing good. In our version, the dialogue would allude to this by Sonic asking Tom to stop telling him what to do. He's his own person. He can take care of himself. Tom tells Sonic that being a hero is about taking responsibility for other people. While I do think this aspect of Sonic's arc is an unoriginal lesson learning trope, I would keep this line because it's a result of Tom's growth from the first movie. Tom tells Sonic that he is still just a kid. He got some more growing up to do before he's ready to be the big hero. Sonic takes offense to this because he knows he's not just a kid. He can run faster than the speed of sound, and using his powers, he defeated Robotnik and saved the town from Green Hills. How can he say that? The real kicker is when Tom tells Sonic that a moment will come when his powers will be needed, but that moment will choose him. In the original, Sonic took what Tom said and believed in it. It's actually a motif in this story. While I do like the payoff, I don't like this aspect of Sonic's character arc, and I'll get more into that later. In our rewrite, Sonic understood what Tom said. He doesn't say it out loud, but he doesn't follow that belief, because that's just not his style. Why wait for a moment to fight injustice when time won't wait itself? Nothing starts until you take action. That's what he believes in. Though he is impressed at Tom's insight. The rest plays out like the original. The next scene where Tom and Maddie are preparing to go to Hawaii plays out like the original. I would add another reason for Sonic staying home is that he has to stay with Ozzy the dog. Therefore, Sonic makes the most of what he can do in the house. Tails arrives on a cliffside through a ring portal proclaiming that he found Sonic, hoping that he is not too late. Remember in my rant I mentioned how Tails would show up later? Yeah, it must be a running joke in this film. But then I looked at this and thought, maybe I can write this into his character arc? The scene where Sonic meets Knuckles and gets rescued by Tails is almost perfect. There are only a couple of changes I would make. People say that movie Sonic's at his best when he's serious, and I agree, but sometimes it feels like he's trying to be serious. You know how Sonic was written in Colors and Lost World, where he's trying to be cool, and it kind of falls flat? It's kind of similar to how movie Sonic tries to act serious. There are some scenes where it works, but there are some scenes where it feels almost out of character. I think I'll show more examples later. In our version of the story, Sonic was shocked by Eggman's return, but seeing that he has nothing but his control glove, he gets a little cocky. He tries to intimidate Robotnik, saying that he made a big mistake confronting him. But when Robotnik threatens his family, Sonic's anger starts to boil. He goes to punch Robotnik with a chaos-powered fist. Robotnik steps aside to reveal Knuckles. The rest plays out like the original, except that Sonic's cockiness and confidence is more apparent. He gets more serious when he's giving it his all, but his confidence gets shattered when he's pinned against a tree by Knuckles. Again, the rest plays out like the original with Tails rescuing Sonic. Tails starts fanboying meeting Sonic, but he doesn't call him by his name, but rather the blue blur. He goes on to explain to Sonic who Knuckles is and what he's looking for. And I do have to question this because how exactly does he know about Knuckles and more specifically the Master Emerald? He wouldn't know about this because he's apparently from a completely different planet from Sonic and Knuckles. I really wanted to save that part for the next rant, but this is relevant. Only change I would make is that Tails doesn't mention the Master Emerald. All he knows is that Knuckles is looking for ultimate power and he thinks Sonic is the key to finding it. The rest plays out like the original with Tails driving the car off a cliff and once again saving Sonic. One more change I would make is to remove the annoying catchphrase, "Only Sonic the Hedgehog would blank," from his character. It's just gives off this fanboy vibe that I don't like. Yeah, Tails is a fanboy in original games, but not to a level to where he's basically a Sonic know-it-all. Agent Stone missing Robotnik and getting the message that he's returned, with Eggman refining his look, is a great scene. Something I like about the scene where Knuckles and Eggman form an alliance is how they subverted our expectations. They make you think that Eggman is threatening to harm Knuckles so he can help him find a Master Emerald, and the self-awareness was well implemented in my opinion. Their goals pretty much align with each other: destroy Sonic. So they were able to form an alliance. But of course we know that Eggman wants to keep the Emerald for himself. This was simply another way to reel Knuckles in. Now we get to the scene where Sonic and Tails hide out in Wade's garage and they find out about the Master Emerald and where it's located. There's a deleted scene where Tails meets Wade, and I would keep that in. Just leave out the part with the snack plate because it's not really relevant. Sonic tells Wade to focus on piecing together what Knuckles said, which is weird because Wade didn't really do anything other than let Sonic and Tails stay in their garage. I would just change it to Sonic thanking Wade for letting them hide out. Sonic questions why Knuckles mentioned Ultimate Power and Longclaw. Tails mentions that maybe there's a connection. Sonic takes out his map and remembers the emerald on it. The map glows and it plays a message that was recorded by Longclaw. The weird thing about this is that it just happens at the right time. It's literally a plot convenience thing. I know Sonic basically runs on plot convenience, but I think the way it was written, it just happens. In our rewrite, Sonic notices the symbols on the emeralds, but he can't read them. Maybe it's some kind of code? Tails chimes in, offering to translate it with his Miles Electric. Sonic says, give it a try. Tails manages to translate the symbols and proceeds to read them. I couldn't really make a decision on what these phrases are. I did want to borrow from Tikal's prayer, like 7 Chaos, Power, Heart, Unified. After the phrase was said, the message from Longclaw plays. She explains the Master Emerald and its powers. This is how Sonic and Tails find out about the Master Emerald. Essentially, Longclaw passes the duty of watching the Master Emerald to Sonic, who gets caught in his desire to be a hero, sees this as his moment. The message continues like the original, except the additional line, do not make the same mistakes I did. Sonic was confused, but saddened. He's determined not to let Longclaw down. Tails reaches to comfort Sonic, but stops to give him space. I'm gonna leave Wade's joke in so this scene can be undercut by the humor. The rest plays like the original, with Sonic stating that he and Tails would get to Siberia first. Tails chuckles nervously and asks, what do he mean we? Sonic answers that he's coming with him. Tails clarifies that he came to warn Sonic and that he's not a field guy. Sonic tells him that they'll watch each other's backs, like partners. Tails is confused. Sonic said that he didn't trust him earlier, that they just met. Well, you did save my life earlier, twice. That gains my trust. He reaches out for a power bump to make an unbreakable promise. Tails agrees to join Sonic on his adventure. Tails scans the map and manages to get the coordinates to its location. Sonic expresses his optimism. This will be a cakewalk. But then they noticed a heavy snowstorm in the distance. More like a snow walk. Agent Stone meeting Knuckles is just one of the most hilarious scenes in this movie. Would not change a thing. Chef's kiss. The scene with Tom and Randall playing volleyball, foreshadowing Team Sonic, isn't too bad either. Showing that Tom would like Sonic to have friends to grow up with. His wingmen. We cut back to Sonic and Tails struggling to navigate through the storm. Tails calls to Sonic that they won't be able to get very far in this weather. They should find some shelter and wait for the storm to blow over. Sonic sees a cabin-like building in the distance, saying that they should seek shelter there. He also finds some snow gear to use as a disguise. Tails is not so sure about this. They don't know who's inside. Sonic reassures to Tails that people on Earth are very welcoming, and they love taking complete strangers into their homes. Only to enter a restaurant and find out that these people aren't so welcoming. Tails orders 2 beef stews using his Miles Electric. Sonic asks Tails where did he get these cool gadgets from? Well, Tails invented them. It's kind of his thing. Sonic is impressed, telling Tails that he's pretty handy. Tails modestly replies it's no big deal. Sonic's been meaning to ask, but how did Tails find him? Tails answers, his inventions. Tails goes on to explain. Now, this is the part of the film that made me believe that there was some miscommunication when writing for this character. It is stated that Tails is from a completely different planet, not from Sonic and Knuckles' planet, a completely different planet. Why? His design has the same characteristics as Sonic and Knuckles, so you would assume that he is from their world, but he's not. We don't know anything of this home planet. Are they hinting at a Colors adaptation? And the fact that Tails has been watching Sonic from the first movie. Now look, I know Tails followed and watched Sonic in the games, but it's more like an impressionable kid who watches and follows this older, cool kid. Sonic 2 brought it to a level where it's more like an obsessed fan than a little impressionable kid. He's been watching Sonic the whole time, even when he's taking baths. I mean, like, doesn't he see that as a red flag or something? I'm not saying that these decisions they made with Tails was miscommunication with the writing, but in my opinion, some of these changes didn't make sense and the other was just weird. In this version, Tails is from the same planet as Sonic and Knuckles. Simple as that. That's how he found out about Knuckles. Sonic's energy blast reached all the way back to his home planet. Tails witnessed Sonic travel at high speeds in different parts of the world, and how he defeated Eggman. He's heard legends of a creature that can run at Sonic's speed, and he found out that the legends were true. When he heard Knuckles was after Sonic, he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. He had to come warn him. But I guess he was too late for that. Tails tries to mask that self-doubt with a chuckle, but Sonic can see right through it. He cheers him up, saying that he's here helping him, and that's better than not being here at all, right? Tails lighten up a little. Thanks, Blue Blur. Sonic laughs. Just call me Sonic, kid. The scene plays out like the original with Sonic getting a text from Tom. I would not change a thing about the ... scene, it is hilarious. The only thing to keep note of is Knuckles labeling Robotnik leaving Agent Stone as dishonor, and Robotnik's "Dis is how I roll" line that will come up later. Cutting back to Sonic and Tails, Tails tries to clarify what he ordered, but the translation came off as an insult to the waiter. Sonic tries to rectify the situation, but they ended up getting caught. Sonic and Tails are about to be tossed into a fire. Tails quickly looks up a Siberian custom at the last moment and declares Povaka. Everyone turned their attention to a man named Champ. Yes, according to the wiki, that is his name. He turns his attention to Sonic and Tails and accepts the challenge. As everyone in the restaurant prepares the room, Sonic suggests taking the map and leaving, but Tails left the map on the table. This was the moment where I noticed that this literally just happened for no reason. The map was nowhere to be seen in the last scene, and then the next they just took it out? Why? This whole thing could have been avoided if they just took the map and left. I used to defend the scene, but finding out about this mistake kind of changed my opinion on this. So in our rewrite, Tails actually kept the map in his backpack after he scanned it. He never takes it out. That means they can leave this place no problem, right? Well, no. Sonic and Tails go to leave, but they see that the big scary patrons are blocking the door. It became clear to them that they won't let them leave. Sonic and Tails have no choice but to participate in this challenge and win. Champ and his backup dancers start to dance. It didn't take long for the pair to find out that this was a dance fight. Only thing to do now is to dance and get out of here. Sonic and Tails attempts to dance like their opponents, but they keep failing. During these attempts, the map slipped from Tails' backpack. Sonic and Tails didn't notice until they saw it on Champ's foot. Sonic goes to grab it, but Champ grabs it first. He holds it above them, taunting them. If they want it, they're gonna have to come and get it. Tails looks around and gets more and more nervous. Sonic stared Champ down, preparing to take the map from the jerk and leave with it. But then he looks at Tails. He sees that he's getting anxious. Sonic asks Tails, is he okay? Tails mutters to Sonic that this was a mistake. He shouldn't have come with him. Sonic tells him that it's okay, they just have to focus on winning this. I can't do this, Sonic! Tails tells Sonic that he is not brave like him, and that this whole mess was his fault. Sonic sees that these failures are getting to Tails. But then he spots a speaker and hooks it up to his phone. He proceeds to play Uptown Funk and... yeah, no secret that it's another licensed music placement. Why Uptown Funk of all songs? It literally has nothing to do with Sonic and Tails' dynamic. This is a big missed opportunity to use a vocal track from one of the games. Why is Sonic such a vehicle for making pop culture references? I'm not saying it's bad for him to make pop culture references, it's actually funny sometimes, but sometimes it can be a little obnoxious. This is a personal choice for me, but I would choose Speak With Your Heart instead. Anyway, back to the story. Sonic calls out to their opponent. If they want to do it their way, then let's do it the Sonic and Tails way. Tails is confused. Sonic tells Tails not to pay attention to the crowd. Just pay attention to him. He'll be fine. The rest of the scene plays out like the original, with Sonic and Tails dancing for fun and end up winning the dance battle. In the aftermath, Sonic and Tails are resting, reflecting on their victory. Tails didn't think that they could win a dance battle that epic. Sonic tells Tails to stick with him if he wants to learn more about Earth. Tails then apologizes for getting them into that mess. Sonic tells him not to worry about it. We improve on our mistakes, not dwell on them. Tails then explains that he didn't have any friends growing up. In fact, he was bullied for his two tails and his intellect. He was always given a hard time because of them. Sonic respectfully states that he knows that feeling. And then he saw Sonic. He was so brave and cool and fearless. He just wished he could be that cool. Sonic proceeds to encourage Tails. He is that cool. It's those differences that make him special. This gives Tails a new perspective on his traits. Maybe being weird isn't so bad. Sonic goes on to tell him that he could be as cool as him, if not cooler. Are you implying that I'm faster than you? Hey, don't push it. Tails chuckles and notices that the storm has died down. They should get going. Sonic asks if he has enough energy to fly to the temple. Tails reassures Sonic that he does, but he starts to lay on the carpet near the fireplace. Sonic decides that they're going to stay the night and get up as early as possible. The scene ends like the original, with Sonic covering Tails with a blanket and Tails covering Sonic with his tails. Now, the original scene was adorable, don't get me wrong, but it kind of feels forced and a little abrupt. Whatever arc that Tails had, it just feels like it concluded in this scene. And Sonic just saying, I know that feeling, with Tails not having any friends because of his two tails. It doesn't make sense because Sonic wasn't really bullied, or if anything, he had to isolate himself because, of his powers. However, with all this new depth with Tails' backstory and Sonic's character arc, the line that Sonic says, I know that feeling, bears more weight. Sonic can actually relate to Tails here because they're both told that they can't do anything. Well, to Sonic it felt that way. Sonic and Tails' friendship should be a prominent development throughout this movie, not concluded within 40 minutes. The next scene starts with Tails carrying Sonic over the mountains. They can have a conversation about each other's skills and how they can improve on them, like Tails teaching Sonic how to spin dash. The Master Emerald's backstory with the Chaos Emeralds is just like one of the cherries on top of this film. Like, it's very well animated. I kind of wish we had an animated series like this. But we didn't get that, didn't we? But my problem is Sonic's takeaway from this backstory is a joke about Vin Diesel and The Rock. Look, I love this joke. I think it's funny. But was he even listening? In this version, Sonic learns that the Master Emerald was created by the Echidnas and was stolen by Longclaw's order. He thought back to what Longclaw said about not making the same mistakes. By the way, did you know that the symbols on the map are changed for this very scene? I never saw anyone bring this up before, just thought it's interesting to point out. The scene plays out with Sonic and Tails obtaining the compass, getting ambushed by Knuckles and Robotnik, and with Sonic and Tails escaping the temple. The snowboard scene can stay mostly the same, however, there's just one little thing I would add. Can you guess what it is? A little more screen time for Tails wouldn't hurt. The scene where Tails is getting chased by Robotnik can be extended. With Tails attempting a spin attack that he witnessed Sonic do earlier, he manages to destroy the Badniks and knock away Eggman's Eggmobile. Sonic and Knuckles have their face-off, ending with them at a standoff. Sonic calls out Knuckles' tribe for ruining his life. Knuckles tells his backstory to Sonic about he lost everything because of him. After hearing this, Sonic gained a better understanding of Knuckles. They both lost everything that day. Tails, thinking that Sonic was in danger, enwraps Knuckles in an electric rope. Knuckles felt deceived. Sonic throws the compass at Tails, but was intercepted by Robotnik. Tails goes after Eggman to try to get the compass back, but he gets electrocuted by Robotnik using his control glove. Tails falls to the snow unconscious. The rest of the scene plays out like the original. The wedding scene also plays out like the original, but the scene with Rachel and Maddie infiltrating the hotel is shortened, so we can, keep the pacing of the film consistent. Robotnik and Knuckles manage to unlock the paths to the labyrinth. Tom declares that they should come up with a plan, but Sonic says there's no time. He's the only one fast enough to get across the ocean. Tom and Maddie disagrees with Sonic's course of action. This is not the time to play hero. You see that fox cub over there? He came all the way from my home planet just to see his hero. And what does his hero do? He almost gets him killed. This is not about being a hero for me. I gotta do what I gotta do. Sonic declares that he won't let anyone else get hurt from his mistakes. A bolt of lightning crashes in the distance, which wakes up the two-tailed fox. Before Tails can say anything, Sonic runs off to the coastline. Tails tries to go after Sonic, but he's too injured to fly. Tom and Maddie attempts at Tails, telling him to take it easy. Tails insists that he has to help Sonic. He doesn't know what he's up against. The scene with Wade confronting Agent Stone stays untouched. Sonic prepares to run across the ocean. In our rewrite, no lines of dialogue is spoken. He takes a deep breath and proceeds to run across the ocean. I'm not saying I don't like the dialogue in the original scene. I think it's funny. This is a change I probably would or would not make. It's not important. The scene where Knuckles and Robotnik and Sonic navigate through the temple's traps remains untouched, and I love the Labyrinth reference. Now, it is before the fight scene that I would change the dialogue to suit the changes I made in this rewrite. Knuckles is fed up with Sonic constantly interfering with his destiny. Why take from his people like those owls? Sonic responds saying that he is not affiliated with that tribe. He made a promise to Longclaw that he won't make the same mistake that she made. Sonic now understands the mistake that Longclaw was referring to. The battle started with the owls stealing the Master Emerald from the echidnas. On the other hand, unbeknownst to him, this was a wise decision in the long run, but that's another story. Sonic tries to convince Knuckles that he wants to help him, but he can't let Robotnik get that emerald. Sonic's words are void to Knuckles' ears. He won't let himself be deceived again. He goes to attack Sonic. Sonic runs up the Emerald Altar to avoid. The battle plays out like the original up until Knuckles is about to crush Sonic with a boulder. Say goodbye, Hedgehog. Suddenly, the boulder exploded into pebbles from a laser beam. Hope I'm not too late this time. It's Tails, who managed to snag the tornado to get to the labyrinth. Knuckles isn't exactly keen on meeting Tails again. His attention turns to Tails' fury, stating that this was the last time he interfered with his battles. A fight between Tails and Knuckles ensues. Knuckles goes to punch Tails, but he deflects his strike with a tail swipe. Tails uses a spin attack to dodge Knuckles' punches and attack him at his back. Tails takes a blow from a punch from Knuckles. Tails gets up and tosses an anti-gravity disc under Knuckles. However, once airborne, Knuckles performs a drill dive aimed at Tails. Tails was able to dodge the attack, but gets struck by Knuckles, who emerged from underground. Tails flies up from the blow he took, but Knuckles goes to punch Tails in the air. Sonic rushes in and catches Tails before he can hit the ground. The pair ran to take cover. Tails panically tells Sonic that this battle will never end until Knuckles destroys them. Sonic expresses that he doesn't know what to do. He did a number on Knuckles with spin attacks and he kept getting back up. Then, Tails gets an idea. He explains it to Sonic. Knuckles calls out the pair, calling them cowards and to show themselves. Sonic and Tails step out in view of Knuckles. The two proceed to rev up a spin dash. Knuckles prepares to fight back. Sonic and Tails dashes towards Knuckles' direction, but much to his surprise, they sped right past him. What trickery is this? Knuckles notices that Tails is attacking in front of him. Knuckles prepares to counter, but was knocked by Sonic's spin attack. Sonic and Tails begin to bounce around the altar's room, knocking Knuckles around with their spin attacks. Finally, Sonic and Tails perform a rolling combo to knock out Knuckles. With Knuckles seemingly weakened, Sonic and Tails start to approach him. Game over, Knuckles. Knuckles tries to get back up, but then he noticed Robotnik in his view. He's taking the Master Emerald for himself. Knuckles shouts to Robotnik, calling him out for breaking the deal. Robotnik mocks Knuckles for his gullibility. We briefly cut to Tails, noticing that the temple is starting to crumble. Oh no. Sonic dashes to stop Robotnik from taking the emerald, but it was too late. Robotnik warps away with a blast, causing the temple to collapse. The rest of the scene plays out like the original, with Knuckles getting stuck and Sonic jumping in to rescue him without hesitation. Knuckles swims up without Sonic, leaving him to drown. With Sonic slowly running out of air, Tails dives in to rescue his friend. He proceeds to propel upwards to get them both to the surface, but he's quickly running out of breath and energy. Tails shuts his eyes and reaches his hand out to the surface. Then, Knuckles grabs Tails' hand and pulls him and Sonic to the beach. The beach scene would play out the same as the original, but only with a couple of changes. First of all, Tails is actually present here. He was surprised and asked Knuckles why did he save them. Knuckles brushes him off. Sonic proceeds to throw sandballs at Knuckles to provoke him. Sonic's response to Knuckles asking why didn't he let him die was reciting Tom's advice about being a hero. Now I know it's like the whole moral thing coming back full circle from the beginning, but even in this case, even in the original, it kind of delivers a bad message. Like, imagine being saved by a person that you weren't that nice to, and you ask why, and they're like, because, you know, that's what a hero does. You know, I'm trying to be a hero. I helped, I saved you. Therefore, I'm a hero. I know that wasn't their intention, but it comes off as Sonic's motivation for saving Knuckles is to be a hero. Like, really? In our rewrite, Knuckles asks why did he just let him die? He's been trying to destroy him since the day they met. Sonic simply responds with, that's just not how I roll. Honor. I respect that. Sonic is selfless, loyal, and has grown to be honest. But here, Knuckles sees Sonic as a contrast to Robotnik. Robotnik is selfish, dishonest, and disloyal. Sonic thanks Tails for coming back for him. Just don't scare me like that again, alright, bud? Tails tries to properly introduce himself to Knuckles and apologize for hitting him with the car, wrapping him up in an electric tether, and interrupting him and Sonic's conflict. Oh please, I was merely injured. But your revenge will soon come when you least expect it, Fox. Tails chuckles, thinking it was a joke, but looking at Knuckles' stare, he wasn't joking. But then Tails remembered that Eggman has the Master Emerald. We have to stop whatever he's doing before it gets worse. Right. Come on, Knucklehead. We're not beat yet. Knuckles stays silent, as if he doesn't want to make another alliance. Tails chimes in and gives his 2 cents on this whole conflict. These two orders of heroes have been fighting over the Master Emerald for centuries. That war is long over, so why continue it? I appreciate your wisdom, Fox. That's not the problem. Knuckles then asks Sonic how does he move forward, seeming so hopeful and free. Sonic answers his question by saying that moving forward is all he could do. He has no regrets. He doesn't let the past hold him back from living his life, and Knuckles can too. Sonic reaches out for a handshake, which he returns and breaks Sonic's hand. Well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. The final act of the film. The final battle. With all these changes that I've made, in my opinion, it's more satisfying. This is no joke one of my favorite scenes in the movie. The Death Egg Robot Team Sonic is just dang near perfect. Now you know what it means when I say almost perfect. Let's go down to changes I made in this scene. Alright, first of all, Tails does not question Knuckles' inclusion in the team up, knowing that he isn't the bad guy here. The rest plays out like the original up until before Team Sonic reconvenes. Right after Sonic gets a hit on the Death Egg Robot's kneecap, he sees there are other civilians still in the town, so before they could do anything else, he goes to evacuate them first. Tom and Maddie helps out too. Just like in the original, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles band together to form a plan, while fighting off the deployed badniks. Robotnik starts to get bored. All they're doing is standing in one place fighting the robots. Let's make them dance, shall we? Robotnik shoots an arm laser right at the trio. Sonic sarcastically says that this guy really hates him that much. Then Sonic realizes that he is the weak spot, but how can they use Sonic against him? Tails comes up with a plan. Sonic can go up to Robotnik and rile him up, leaving him focused on only Sonic. Knuckles chimes in to finish the plan. He'll be leaving himself vulnerable from me and you! Knuckles compliments Tails, calling him an intelligent tactical warrior. Tails returns the compliment, saying that it's no big deal. With the plan agreed upon, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles then proceeded to blast through the horde of enemies like in the original. Though instead of Sonic being the only one doing a spin attack on the enemies, we can have Tails do it too. Instead of flying in a circle, like why did he do that? I would also change the way Sonic taunts Eggman. In the original, he just says, "Come and get me" in a serious way. This is just another example where they try to write Sonic serious in some scenes, but here it feels like they were forcing it. So in this version, Sonic would actually taunt Eggman playfully, calling him a giant talking egg, which is actually very fitting given the mech. The rest plays out like the original with Tails and Knuckles clinging onto the mech. However, Tails is the one who goes up, while Knuckles goes in to infiltrate in the inside. Works smarter, not harder. Guess he learned from Robotnik after all. Now this setting is a nod to the giant Eggman robot boss from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So what I would do here is have Robotnik place his hands on the bridge and then shoot a laser at Sonic. The rest plays out not really much different from the original, except for Tails stating that he was a distraction. Not only it's a cliche line, but it's kind of stupid. Like, what if Knuckles wasn't there? Robotnik would ridicule Tails, saying, "What makes you think you're so special?" Tails could respond with, "I got friends on my side," or something. Knuckles gets Robotnik's attention. Robotnik calls Knuckles disloyal. Knuckles simply responds with, "This is how I roll." And Knuckles punches the Master Emerald out of him, with it falling out of the Death Egg robot, Tails and Knuckles just falling, sliding down, and getting knocked out, until they just watched Sonic get crushed. What were they even doing? Sonic, while weakened, gets up to reach the Master Emerald. Robotnik switched the Death Egg robot to auxiliary power. Knuckles was confused. Robotnik should have been defeated. He lost the Emerald's power. Tails realizes that he must have switched to auxiliary power. Tails started to run towards Sonic to help him. The rest plays out like the original with Maddie and Tom saving Sonic, but ended up getting the truck wrecked by the Death Egg robot. Tails sees Sonic and goes to save him, but right before Robotnik can circle the trio within the flames, Knuckles rushes in and grabs Tails to get him away from the flames. The rest plays out with the Master Emerald shattering, leaving the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic tells Tom and Maddie to leave, but they decide to stay by his side and accept their fate. Tails calls out to Sonic, telling him to get out of there, but Sonic knew that he wasn't getting out of this. He looks at Tails, giving him a smile. "See you later, buddy." We cut to Knuckles, noticing that the Chaos Emeralds are glowing. They start to circle around Sonic. Tails shouts Sonic's name after the Death Egg robot brings its foot upon them. Super Sonic lifts the foot off the ground, goes right through it, and what ensues is a battle between him and the Death Egg robot. The references or whatever, I love this fight. Not a thing I would change. The rest plays out like the original, with Knuckles thinking that Sonic was brainwashed by the Emerald's power, but he was the same Sonic that he's always been. And instead of Tom and Maddie hugging Sonic, Tails is the one who goes to hug Sonic first, and he embraces it. I basically moved the hug from the aftermath of the dance fight scene to the end where Sonic and Tails' friendship is actually developed. Tails asks Sonic why did he let go of being the most powerful creature in the universe. Sonic responds that he's not a god, he's a hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog. Essentially, he's stating that he's true to himself. And also, Sonic is the one who hands the responsibility of guarding Master Emerald to Knuckles. The three made a vow to protect the universe from evil. The film ends like the original, with the trio playing baseball and going off to get ice cream. And Shadow in the post-credits because, well, Shadow. And that, everyone, was my rewrite for Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Again, is it perfect? Absolutely not. It is not perfect. Like I said, I'm not a writer. And I will admit, some of the stuff in this rewrite are asking for too much. You know, even re-scripting some of the dialogue would have made some of the scenes a little better. That's pretty much some of the other changes I made. The most notable changes I made was more screen time for Tails and more of an emphasis on his friendship with Sonic. I also didn't want to really change any elements to the movie that I thought were already good enough. The parent-figure relationship between Sonic and Tom and Maddie. I didn't really give much care to the human scenes. My only focus was on the Sonic stuff. Well, I'd like to hear how you would fix up the human stuff in the comments. And that is it. I basically made the Sonic 2 movie story about family, friendship, and being true to yourself. Sonic Movie 2 basically had all the elements of making a good movie. And yes, it is a great movie. Like I said, all the story needed was a couple of tweaks. All the extra stuff was, my personal opinions. But I think you get the idea. I also want to shout out and give credit to someone that you might know. Charai5. His rewrites of Sonic Forces and the Super Mario Bros. Movie are what inspired me to make this video, and I think they're both worth giving a watch. But before we end off this video, I want to talk about the production behind it. This video was originally going to be a retrospective on the Sonic movie franchise. However, due to IRL stuff and my crap editing software, I had to make a compromise. I decided to rework this retrospective into a Sonic Movie 2 rewritten video, which was honestly the main focus I was going for in the first place. I have the Sonic Movie 1 retrospective preserved, so maybe I'll upload that in the future. I was also originally going to talk about the Knuckles show, which by the way, this video started production before that came out. My thoughts have been changing since then after seeing it, so I think the Knuckles TV show deserves its own video. And it's not going to be a review because there are content creators who already made them, and it pretty much aligned with my opinions. I think the Knuckles series is basically what fans have been saying what was wrong with the film franchise, amped up to 11 and actually way worse than people were complaining about before. Knuckles is not the focus, he is not the main character of his own series, and that was the biggest problem. However, I think the basic premise of the show can be salvaged, but that's for a potential video in the future. And that's about it. I'd like to hear your opinions on my rewrite in the comments. Again, it's not perfect and I'm not a writer, but I would like to improve in the future. But until then, I would appreciate a like on this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video to anyone who might be interested. I also realized that I uploaded my first video 10 years ago. To those who have stuck with me throughout these years, and to those who are interested in my channel, thank you guys so much. And again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.